Okay. We got the overstimulation paradox.
Tired? Have a coffee. Feeling sad? Order a takeaway. Feeling lonely? Watch a YouTube video. We all have our vice of choice. For
Oh,
me,
yeah.
it was social media, food, and caffeine. Not even the Greek leaders or Egyptian pharaohs had access.
Damn, dude, for me, it's social media. And not even social media, really. It's not like I'm on there, like, well, I kind of am sometimes, like, doom scrolling on Twitter or something. Ugh.
To the things we do. While elites in the Roman Empire could get a front row viewing to watch a gladiator flog a medieval peasant, you can watch a giraffe fight, an orangutan boxing match, or Eddie Hall on a rampage for free from your bedroom.
Yeah.
The privileged ancient Greeks could enjoy some berries as a treat, but you could purchase this thing. Wealthy 18th century Americans could enjoy a luxurious imported coffee, while you can order enough pre-workout to revive Harambe directly to your doorstep. Great, right? I thought so too, until the lockdown when things started feeling off. Despite having more free time and fewer responsibilities, I struggled to focus on my degree. I was the most round I've ever been. I slept poorly and felt deeply dissatisfied. After going down the overstimulation rabbit hole, I was driven to make massive changes. I want to try and spark the same for you, so here's what I learned about overstimulation and how it may be ruining your health, both physically and mentally. Travel and entertainment have never been so convenient, and technology never so advanced. The average American can
Bro, I can already tell that this video is catered towards somebody that has been overly stimulated because he never really stands like on one image too long, like maybe like 3-4 seconds, and then he cuts to something else. I don't know, maybe he'll like do something different later, but like, bro, there are so many cuts in here.
consumes more calories than ever before. 2 hours and 24 minutes is the average time spent on social media, with 144 phone checks a day. The medical stimulant prescriptions have nearly doubled from 2011 to 2022. Yet, the number of cases of worldwide depression between 1990 and 2017 have increased by almost 50%. Perhaps none of these apply to you, but you still struggle to watch a video without going to the comments, work without caffeine, or focus without titillating music.
Bro, I can't, like, for me, it was only recently, like about a month or two ago. Like, if I'm just sitting on my bed, like I'll open up YouTube or Netflix or something and try to find something to watch, or maybe I'll, you know, try to find something, and then I'll find something, and then I will watch it for anywhere from, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then I am just bored, and then I have to open up another tab. No, I keep that tab open, and I make like a self-imposed commercial break to like go find something else. I'll open up another tab, and I'll be like, okay, what's everyone on Twitter doing? Okay, and then I'll just doom scroll for like another 4 or 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. Maybe go back to the other thing, and I'll watch like some more of the original thing, and another 5 or 10 minutes goes by, and I'll just go back to like, oh, I'll look at that the Twitter tab and be like, okay, well that's not much has probably happened on Twitter. So now I'll just open up a new tab, and maybe I'll open up YouTube. Let's see is there anything new happening on YouTube? And and then I'll do that, and I'll just go bounce back and forth, and I'm just like, fuck, what am I doing? My focus and attention is completely shot.
This affects everyone, from athletes to actors. Despite access to more sources of pleasure than ever before, it seems like we're more miserable, dependent, and overstimulated. The average American is overweight, 1 in 3 report insufficient sleep, and America has hit an all-time low on the Global Happiness Report. Between 2000 and 2018, eating disorders more than doubled. Meanwhile, the leading causes of death in middle-aged Americans without a college degree are what Princeton economists refer to as deaths of despair. How can this be happening? Dr. Lemberg suggests that these trends occur not in spite of our increased ability to avoid discomfort.
Okay, I'm just gonna take a guess at it. So I think the main thing is the smartphone. If you can get enough money to get a smartphone, you know, Like, you could make some things in your life work because you have like access to the internet. Maybe you make a business or something, and you just have everything in the world that you need at your disposal on the smartphone. Smartphone is just a tool. Same thing with a computer or a laptop or anything else connected to the internet, really. It's just a tool. It's not inherently good or bad, but anytime, I think if you were to introduce a smartphone to an environment with all of the current social media that is provided on it, I think it just stops progress of just, I don't know, anything really. Like, it stops progress in some ways, and then it'll progress it in other ways. Because a lot of the times, like, you can communicate with damn near anybody now because of the internet, and I think that's great. Like, you couldn't do that any time before the internet. But when you give, like, when you give, like, a like, everybody, and I was gonna say, like, when you break it down into, like, the classes, like, it doesn't matter if you give, like, upper class people a smartphone because they already got money or whatever, so they don't need to really, like, try to, like, better themselves or anything. You get middle class people like a smartphone, and they're like 50-50. It's probably hindering. It's probably helping in some way, but maybe it's hindering. And then maybe you give, like, the lower class person a smartphone, and they just do the same thing as everybody else. They're just engaged with it the entire time. They don't really want to, I don't know, better themselves, really. I mean, same thing with the other classes. Whenever you introduce, that was the main point I was trying to get at. Whenever you introduce social media or, like, a smartphone to anybody, any group of people, everybody is just immediately more concerned with what everybody else is doing and not so much themselves.
But perhaps because of our efforts to evade it. Dopamine is the brain's main chemical of want and desire. In a study on genetically modified rats, incapable of producing dopamine, food was placed just inches away from their mouths, and they starved to death. Dopamine is vital for incentive motivation. It drove our ancestors to forage for food, hunt, and seek out partners, and it's why it feels so good to eat a delicious meal. But over time, we've become better at finding ways to trigger more dopamine in our brain's reward pathways. In rats, chocolate increased the basal output of dopamine in the brain by 55%, sex by 100%, nicotine 150%, cocaine 225%, and amphetamines by 1000%. But everything which goes up must come down. Neuroscientists have identified that both pleasure and pain are processed in the same overlapping brain regions. In other words, it operates like a seesaw, with pain on one side and pleasure on the other. Our brains like to maintain a state of balance. This is something that Socrates noticed thousands of years ago, stating how strange it is that a man cannot have both pleasure and pain at the same time.
Well, I mean, I was gonna make a joke. I don't know if it would be a good or bad joke. I will refrain from making that joke.
Yet, when he pursues and catches one, he's sure to meet the other as well. With every hit, it becomes less pleasurable as we build up a tolerance.
Heavy exposure or use of any highly dopaminergic drug, I need more and more to get the same effect. Over time, I experience less pleasure when I'm not using that drug. So you're in a dopamine deficit state. So what does that mean? That means you are more unhappy than your baseline.
This is a paradox of hedonism, or the pursuit of pleasure. It can lead to anhedonia, or the inability to enjoy pleasure of any kind. This is the dilemma today. With so much easy access to cheap thrills, our dopamine reward centers are being hijacked. In the words of Dr. Finnegan, we're like cacti in the rainforest,
Shit, do I got that? Do I have a little bit of anhedonia?
drowning in overabundance. But here's the thing, most of us know that Class A substances are bad. People who argue that social media is as bad as meth are probably being
I don't know about that.
a bit dramatic, or that sugar's the new tobacco. While less dopamine inducing, these things are almost unavoidable. I mean, you can't just abstain from food or the internet, and because
Yeah, you don't need the internet to live. You do need food to live.
of this, addiction is much more common. It affects everyone, whether you're a doctor, a rat, or even Spider-Man. In an old study on rats, they were hooked up to a machine and could achieve stimulation by pressing a lever on either side of the cage.
It was somewhat different than rewarding stimulation for food and water in that there was no satiation. Animals would continue for hours and hours and didn't seem to satiate. They didn't feel full. They would just keep doing it for long, long periods of time. They would do it to exhaustion.
They then electrified the bottom of the grid, making it very painful to run across.
And a
Jesus.
rat wanting brain stimulation would brave a shock stronger than even a starving rat would brave to get food.
This shows a rat is willing to pay a very high price in order to get to the pedal.
Human addicts will pay just as high a price for their rewards.
Damn, dude. And these are like in black and white. Like they figured this shit out back then.
In another study, 42 people were to sit alone in a room for 15 minutes with a button that would give them an electric shock. Out of the 18 men, 12 decided to press the button. On average, 1.47 times, with one guy pressing it 190 times, suggesting that people don't like to be bored, perhaps prefer novel pain to boredom, and that someone in the study needs further evaluation. This is why mindless scrolling is so addictive. Like a rat pulling levers for dopamine hits despite the harm. This behavior contributed to my binge eating and caffeine dependence, and was the wake-up call I needed, because the consequences for us are much more long-lasting than an electric shock.
Dude, so like I kind of had some instances of like the whole withdrawal thing, like giving me like a whole snap back to reality thing. So I think the first one was with nicotine. Now, this happened a long time ago when I was very young. Like, oh my God. I think I was like, what, 4 or 5? And, okay, so my dad owned a restaurant back in the day. And he was like the head chef, also the manager. He also owned the place. And he's just like, he had to wear like all the hats back in the day. So he was like super stressed out all the time. And whenever he was cooking, a lot of the times he would have like a cigarette in his mouth, and I would always just see my dad with a cigarette in his mouth, and I thought my dad was like the coolest dude in the world because he's always like doing something, and he always had a cigarette in his mouth. And you know, I didn't know cigarettes were bad for you. So one time, my dad's in the back cooking, and so he asked me, "Oh, here, Cornel." He gave me the cigarette, and he said, "Go throw this out of the back." And I was like, "Okay." So I run to the back. I closed the door to the restaurant in the back, and then right before I went to go throw it on the ground, I was like, "I want to taste this." So I did. I like sucked on it a little bit, and I was like, I immediately started coughing, and then I was like, I know. Coughing up everything which way. And then from that point on, I just like swore off cigarettes. I'm like, this is fucking stupid. Why would anybody do this? And I just threw a cigarette on the ground and like stomped it out and like whatever. So from that point on, I was like, okay, this is dumb. And so that was my little bout with nicotine. So my next thing was, it was probably with caffeine, but it's pretty stupid. It was with pre-workout caffeine too. So like the normal scoop for like a pre-workout thing is like about 150 milligrams of caffeine. So I would take that one like pretty religiously, about 3 or 4 days a week, and I would feel fine. But then I tried this like new I didn't want to, so like I didn't get a new one. I just simply wanted to like up the dose to see if it would have like any effect on me. And so with that, you do like the 2 scoops. So that's like 300 milligrams of caffeine. So I did that for about a month. And it wasn't too bad, but it was only after Like the first time I did like the double scoop of like pre-workout, I was like, oh wow, I feel a little bit more energized. But then afterward, after the month where I was like, okay, I'm at a pre, and then I just had to go back to like the single scoop or whatever, I just had these massive fucking headaches. And I quickly realized that, holy fuck, this is not worth it to do the fucking double scoops of pre-workout for like 300 milligrams of caffeine. I was like, fuck this. The headaches were too much. It's so bad. Fuck it. So for me personally, I think like the come down or just the initial taste of a thing is just like, that's enough for me to just be like, no shot bucko. But so far with, what do you call it? With social media addiction, there hasn't really been that come to fruition moment of, oh shit, this is pretty bad. I mean, honestly, if I thought of time as a currency, there have been numerous times where I would look down at the clock or look down at the bottom right corner of my little computer laptop. And then I would open up some tabs, watch some shit, go back and forth, and then look down at the clock again and be like, what time is it? And I'll be like, oh fuck. Like 3 hours passed? Oh shit. Me realizing I lost like 3 hours just because I was watching shit, it doesn't really feel like it. It doesn't really like hit as hard as like the bad taste of a cigarette or like the headache of like a caffeine letdown.
We live in a hyperstimulated society. The most obvious addictions might be those involving food, with over 73% of Americans being overweight. I mean, this is the fattest man in the world. In 1890, people paid to see him. Today, he'd be unemployed. But even in healthy-looking people, the combination of overstimulating social media content and food likely has contributed to the rise in eating disorders such as binge eating. Personally, I thought I could look like an influencer in months with extreme dieting and training, but instead, I ended up binge eating and getting injured. The guilt fueled a repeating cycle. I looked physically healthy enough, but mentally I was struggling, a common issue in the fitness industry.
I thought binge eating and eating disorders were things for teenage girls at school who wanted to look better and succumbed to the pressures of social media. I can tell you that is absolutely not the case. The fitness industry is ripe with this.
I had a full-blown binge eating disorder, and like it feels so weird to even say that. And again, I didn't want to admit it to myself at the time.
Addiction today
That's crazy.
is a lot more common than we'd like to admit, and it affects the best of us. Recently, I spoke to
Let me see the list.
admit, and
Food. Addicted to food. Okay, social media. Addicted to social media. Addicted to caffeine. Addicted to gambling. Addicted to stims. Alcohol. Nicotine. All right.
it affects the best of us. Recently, I spoke to an elite sports sleep coach, to some of the world's best footballers about this. Is addiction common in Premier League football?
Common, Josh. There has been a growing addictive behaviour to a number of factors. Caffeine, sleeping tablets, melatonin supplements, CBDs, and alcohol. You mentioned gambling. You think of a pyramid, or you think of the iceberg, and above the sea line, you can see that there's been an increase in these things being used.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, from what he's gathering, it seems like these people are just treating their bodies as like a vessel, just to do things at a certain time. You know, when you wake up, you take a little bit of caffeine. When it's time to work out or train, maybe you take like some pre-workout. Maybe you take some more vitamins or whatever. When it's time to like settle down, maybe you take some sleeping pills, or if you're trying to relax, maybe you do some pot or whatever. And it's like, it's just this hedonistic circle that you're just engaging in when you want your body to do the thing.
You look below, it's much greater, and it's growing much faster. You just can't, it's not being revealed as much. I probably spend 50% of my time using my technique to get people away from that process.
The ease of access and normalization of these things is what makes them so harmful.
So we know from the research literature that the more you use social media, the more likely you are to feel lonely or isolated. We know that the constant exposure to your friends' carefully curated positive portrayals of their life can leave you to feel inadequate and can increase rates of depression. So it's one thing to spend a couple hours at the slot machine in Las Vegas, but if you bring a slot machine with you and you pull that handle all day long.
I mean, also, like, he just lumps in depression. I think there's like, isn't there like various forms of depression? Like there's functional depression. Like you can still function within society, but you're just depressed.
From when you wake up to when you go to bed, we're not wired from it. It short circuits the brain, and we're starting to find that it has actual cognitive consequences, one of them being this sort of pervasive background hum of anxiety.
Because we don't just overeat, gamble, or doom scroll to chase pleasure.
Everyone's kind of hung up on dopamine, and dopamine's there, but I think a lot of the addictive qualities are about pushing the negativity away. So what we really see is a lot of emotional numbing.
This avoidance worsens relationships, presence, and
I think that's pretty true. Whole emotional numbing, like people not wanting to deal with like the things that are going on in their life. I would say for like an average person, their life kind of sucks. You know, they can't really see a way to like make it better. And you know, you try to like tell someone, oh, just get good at a thing and just make money at doing the thing. But everybody can't really be good at something.
Mental well-being.
The more that we externalize our attention, we reduce process times, emotional processing in the brain. As we reduce emotional processing in the brain, what do we see? A rise in just about every mental illness characteristic.
Overstimulation has also contributed.
Oh, the double pad, the triple pad with the girl.
To our shrinking attention spans. How could I have expected myself to read Android documentation in class when I just double scooped pre-workout, listened to Gym Emo rock hype, and scrolled social media before? Meanwhile, I'm getting notifications. It sounds incredibly obvious, but while you're engaged in bad habits, it's difficult to spot. At the time, I thought I needed CBD or nootropics, which of course did not solve my problem. Our tendency to prefer immediate rewards over larger delayed ones is known as delay discounting, and it's exploited and normalized in today's environment of overabundance. The worrying thing about habits is that they compound.
If you were able to improve by 1% each day for an entire year, and those gains compound, you would end up 37 times better at the end of the year. And if you were to get 1% worse, you would whittle yourself almost all the way down to zero.
Now, you might have the same question I did at the time. If overstimulation is such an obvious problem, why is no one doing anything about it?
What do you mean, why isn't nobody doing anything about it? Like, the overstimulation comes from like the big tech companies like Twitter, fucking YouTube, Reddit, Twitch, Stake, Kick, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, question mark, Twitter. What else? TikTok. All those big companies have a vested interest to keep you stimulated. You can't really force the behavior of you can't really force the users to engage in a certain type of behavior. That's why they engage with like they can influence your behavior. You know, it was only like what was it? About 6 months ago, I noticed that all the social medias started to just give you like one little notification thing in your little notification bell inbox thing. Because like a year or two ago, there'd be like, I go on to something and there'd be like no notifications or whatever, but I don't really like tweet at people or anything or do fucking any like crazy things really. So my inbox and my notifications would always be like blank. But some time had passed, and then I would get like this one little red circle in my little Twitter thingy, like my notification or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, what's this? So I clicked on the thing, and this is like some random ass person just tweeted this. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And I noticed it, and it kept on happening. And it's like, that's just a way that the big tech companies can influence your behavior with interacting, on their social medias. I want to keep you there for longer. And what are you going to do? Even from like the government standpoint, what are you going to do? Like impose like some sort of law that makes it so that you can only interact with social media for only X amount of hours or something? It's like, maybe you could do that with like children, but you can't really do that with adults. I think China tried to do that. I don't know if they are still doing that or whatever, but I know that is a thing. But I don't know.
The more something triggers dopamine, the more addictive it can be. This makes low-cost, instant, high dopamine products highly profitable. This is why companies like Nestle hire food scientists to optimize their chocolates and snacks to be as cheap and hyper-palatable as possible. Like in the story of Nauru, this can initially be good for the economy, until eventually 96% of people became overweight.
Damn.
And now it's a massive crisis. In response to the food environment, appetite-suppressing substances such as Wegovy have hit the market in an attempt to encourage people to eat less ultra-processed foods. Worried that this would dent demand.
Damn. You need to sell a drug to stop with the appetite? Damn. Whatever happened to like just eating vegetables?
And for its food products, Nestle are now developing frozen pizzas enriched with vitamins and protein, specifically for Wegovy users. On podcasts, extreme guests are often chosen over more balanced guests because they attract more attention, often providing entertainment at the expense of misinformation.
The more time we spend jumping from bit of information to bit of information every couple of minutes during our day, the less we worry about how important something is, and the more we're simply attracted to whatever's new.
Cigarettes are rebranded as fun vapes. Meanwhile, these things are often marketed as healthier alternatives to more harmful products. However, in reality, they frequently replace genuinely healthy choices and perpetuate the path of least resistance, making it increasingly unconventional to prioritize health.
Yeah, he's 100% true on that. It's like, we can't have you just breathing air. We need you to breathe flavored air. We need to be making money off you in some way, shape, or form. And it's kind of crazy because I don't have any really I do have like one addiction, food wise, and it's these stupid little what do you call it? Like little Mio doodads. I just like shoving a bunch of waters and shit like that. So I'm not like I have all those fucking pills over there for like health. So, I mean, I'm not above reproach either. I mean, it's just another version of addiction.
I decided to delete my Instagram because I just felt like I was so addicted to this kind of false version of my life that it was just...
I mean, you could just like stop going on it. Like acknowledge that it's there, be an adult, and just not click on it. Is that not an option?
Taking over. I would be on set working, I'd come and sit in my chair and just scroll. So I decided to make an announcement, which unfortunately we have to do, and say that I'm taking a break from social media. And I tried to position myself and say, like, I'm taking a break from social media because I feel like my mental health will benefit from it. And the thing that really upset me is the press ran with that, and they tried to make out that I was having this mental breakdown.
Entertainment, snacks, and easy pleasures have their perks, but this perspective helped me realize I was unwittingly harming myself. Much like the rats pulling levers for others' gain, it's not a conspiracy. People like profit and rely on us staying in the overstimulation cycle. To paraphrase Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and you'll call it fate. Nobody's coming to help you. This is something you have to do for yourself.
Yeah.
And sadly, a key solution to overstimulation is now somewhat overlooked.
Most people don't know this, but there's a brain structure.
What is the key to overstimulation? I mean, it can't be going cold turkey, can it?
Called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. But what's interesting about this brain area is there are now a lot of data in humans, not some mouse study, showing that when people do something they don't want to do, this brain area gets bigger. Yep. And by the way, I'm only
Oh boy, I wonder what he's referencing.
learning this recently because it's new data. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex is smaller in obese people. It gets bigger when they diet. It's larger in athletes. And in people that live a very long time, this area keeps its size. In many ways, scientists are starting to think of the anterior mid-cingulate cortex not just as one of the seats of willpower,
Right.
but perhaps actually the seat of the will to live.
Now we're talking.
In other words, pushing on the pain side of the equation can lead to pleasure. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This isn't a suggestion to start training in a sauna or to get your mate to clobber you with a tire, but to seek out productive pain.
I almost spit my fucking water out. But I mean, yeah, he's like, Andy Hughes is probably referencing like you should probably start working out.
That takes you closer to where you want to be. Focus on your own consistent compounding progress and not others. As someone who struggled with these things more than average, I followed the advice of all these people in this video. Reduced social media to useful platforms like communities, ate mostly whole foods, and followed influencers for fitness coaches, took daily photos for accountability, and replaced excessive caffeine and doom scrolling with better sleep and reading. This won't make you a depressed robot. Food now tastes better, exercise is more enjoyable, and I can work less with better focus. Music, films, and eating out are now more enjoyable, and caffeine is a nice boost, not a necessity.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a struggle, but controlling overstimulation completely transformed my life over the last 4 years.
And it's not like if you start doing all of these things, like working out, eating better, and so on and so forth, getting better sleep, these things will help with the issues of overstimulation. They will probably not solve it, because that's still something you have to deal with like every day. It's like living in a house with a bunch of like cakes and cookies and donuts and ice cream and so on and so forth, but you just don't eat it. That's what you have to deal with every day. Everything that you want to like scroll on is at the push of a button on your phone. Trying to deal with like overstimulation, I mean, it comes down to you. Nobody can force you to do a certain thing or not do another thing.
If I can do this, you can make massive progress too, whatever that looks like for you. If you have goals in our overstimulated world, regaining control isn't just a choice, it's vital for your mental health and physical well-being.
Yeah, but although I would say it is easier for like the whole working out, eating better thing, it's like, I would say it is significantly harder if you've never been fit before. Acquiring the thing is harder than maintaining the thing. It's just an aside or whatever, but the whole overstimulation thing, this affects like regular, seemingly healthy people too, just the same way. So it's not like a one-stop shop of just work out and eat better. Like I said, those things can help, but they're not like the cure. But yeah, I mean, good video. I like it. I mean, it just brings to the forefront of, Jesus Christ, I'm overstimulated too much. And I don't know, it's like happening to me more and more, and I don't know how to take a break from it, dude. I mean, I could take my own advice, and I probably should, of just don't open another fucking tab. And I'll probably have to do that or something. I'll figure it out. But yeah, good video and good stuff. I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, later.